Good afternoon. Okay. It's an exciting member of Lost Talk, a club where friends can come together and help each other with public speaking. I thought I'd come today and share some thoughts with you on public speaking, in terms of what you can use or do to improve yourself as a competent, effective speaker. And so these thoughts are put together under the title,
You might have to turn it on.
let's try it again, under the title, Game, Set, Speak. Public speaking through the lens of a tennis player. Thought I'd make it fun. Now before I begin, raise your hand if you recognize any of these names. Roger Federer, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. Good, very good. I'm going to give you two fun facts. Fun fact number one, tennis was originated during the 12th century in the modern parts of France by monks. The sport back then was called jeu de paume, game of the hand, because the ball was struck literally with the palm of the hand. And down through the ages, they eventually changed, put a glove instead of the hand. Royalty enjoyed the sport, that they took it up and they played it extensively. And in the 16th century, they also added the tennis racket. So because royalty played the game so much over those years, the sport has since become associated with wealth, social status, agility, finesse, and grace. To that end, the prowess of Roger Federer has been described as poetry in motion. As you notice, he can even hit the ball between his legs behind. He has done some crazy shots. If persons watch tennis, do you watch tennis? Any tennis fans in the crowd? Could we have one or two? Great. He is beautiful to watch. It's amazing the things that he can do. Rhetoric, fun fact number two. Rhetoric is from the public speaking, from the school of rhetoric, that is. Rhetoric is the art of effective speaking and writing. That skill was developed in ancient Greece to train the citizens of Greece how to participate in society, politics, academics. And so if you have that gift, that skill of speaking, it will even catapult you into other social spheres. Some of the architects of public speaking include Aspasia of Mileto. She was the mother of rhetoric, by the way. And she influenced Socrates. Socrates is the father of philosophy in the Western world. Socrates influenced Plato. And he was the one who built the first university in the Western world. Plato influenced Aristotle, who wrote the book, The Rhetoric. And in that book, Rhetoric, he talks about the three forms of persuasion. Ethos, which is speaking to the character of the speaker, because you influence your audience with your character or your credibility. Logos, which is logic, reasoning. And pathos, appealing to the emotions of the audience to get what you'd like them to hear. So there we have the architects of public speaking. Now, you're thinking to yourself, okay, Lesley, so what does all this information have to do with the price of beans at IGA? Well, I'm going to tell you that I had my own revelation of what connects public speaking and tennis. So hear me out. I'm a tennis player of poor economic means and hopefully a nursery rhyme emotion. I can't do that just yet. I'm still working on that. But I am fascinated with the art of public speaking. In my early years, I was loquacious, a chatterbox. My report cards would tell my mother how much I talked in school. But outside of my friends and family relationships, I was mute, reticent, shy, believe it or not. Now, despite that phenomenon of being shy. I had no difficulty expressing myself with dance and sports. So while I had dance moves like Michael Jackson, all that stuff, I attended university on a 4-year tennis scholarship, and I subsequently started my own tennis academy called Butterfly Wings Tennis Academy. It was to get females into playing tennis. So I moved back to St. Kitts. I found a lot of females who were playing tennis. And it was also a way to get my friends and I who have high stress jobs to have fun, to learn how to manage their stress. So that's how I started my little academy. I spent most of my time during that period, a lot of my time I spent on a tennis court. But while I spent every moment that I could on a tennis court, I languished in mortal dread of speaking in front of an audience. That was something I wanted to vomit. But it's something I still wanted to do secretly. As time went by, I got sick and tired of being afraid. And also I realized that if I did not eventually work on conquering my glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking, new word for you, that it could actually affect my ability as a professional. It could keep me stunted. So I got tired of being not confident in this arena. And so I began to do, slowly but surely, study and participation. But it didn't happen overnight. I had many trials and failures. I stepped in one foot at a time, but everything again did not happen all at once. But over time I began to realize that with study and participation, there's a connection between tennis and public speaking. The concepts that I used in tennis, I also realized that they were in public speaking. And 3 of those concepts I want to share with you. They include stock taking, persistent and consistent practice, and breathing. Stock taking. When I first started out in tennis, all I wanted to do was have fun and play the sport well, because I like to play well, I like to have a lot of fun. But back then I didn't think about stock taking, but I'm sure it's something I did instinctively. So I reassessed the skills that I had coming into the sport. Stock taking is also something, it's also another way of saying taking inventory. Perhaps you're familiar with that term. And if I think back, the things that I can remember having coming into this sport were as follows. I had foot speed from being a sprinter in my first sport of track and field. I had hand and eye coordination. It's something that you're going to need in tennis. Very important. Otherwise, another sport would have had to find me if I didn't have hand and eye coordination. I had a racket that was donated to me, a Jimmy Wilson Connor racket. By today's standards, that thing felt like a ton, but to me it was the best thing since sliced bread. I was just so happy to have that to help me in my new sport. I had access to dilapidated courts. Courts that were white lines painted on black asphalt, and dirt courts that had the nerve to pose as grass courts. And they all had sagging nets that were propped up with sticks, but I had some place to play. And I had a willing tennis coach who saw my brimming enthusiasm and happily worked me to the ball. I was good. I can get into tennis. So this is where I started in tennis, and this is where I built my game. Now, in public speaking, what did I have coming into public speaking? Well, let's see. I, first of all, was sick and tired of being afraid. Because change only comes when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's when you change. It doesn't matter if somebody's going to try and help you. Change only comes when you are ready to change. And I was ready to stop being afraid or start working on not being afraid. That was number one. Number two, I realized that I had access to a lot of sources via the internet, television, and even live events of persons doing public speaking. And it was food that I can use to learn to see what's good and what's not. Number three, I found out that I'm already a public speaker. You see, Roger Love, one of the world's leading vocal coaches, said that, and I quote, All speaking is public speaking, whether you're speaking to one person or 1,000. So you see, when I'm talking to myself, I'm engaging in public speaking. When I'm talking to my dogs who I swear came back as human, I'm engaging in public speaking. When I'm having conversation, business transactions, or just shooting the breeze with my friends, that's public speaking. So I already had those skills. And the fourth thing I also realized is that in my efforts to continue to conquer my glossophobia, I also joined a club called Toastmasters. Some of you may have probably heard about it. It's all over the United States. It was founded back in 1924 in California, and it's international now. So I'm also in that club, and I continue to work on my public speaking skills. So this is where I started, and this is a platform from which I'm also working on my public speaking skills. As my skill in tennis improved or progressed, I began to participate in tournaments, regionally and internationally. But then I realized tennis can take me places. It opened doors of opportunities for me in other worlds. And I realized if I want to take advantage of those opportunities, then I need to participate at a higher level. Which means I then need to be more committed to a higher level of training and thinking. That commitment will require commitment, mind, body, and soul. That commitment would be akin to the egg and bacon analogy. In that analogy, while the chicken is involved, the pig is already committed. So I had to become the martyred pig and sacrifice, make personal sacrifices of physical injury, stretching myself beyond my comfort zone and going up even when I'm trembling and feeling nauseous, taking that step. That's the only way you're going to start getting over that fear. And also being it for the long haul and enduring rejection and ridicule. And I got a lot of that. A lot of persons thought I was a smooth. I just seemed to think, eat, sleep tennis back then. This is where consistent and persistent practice comes into place. Persistent practice means that in tennis, I want to make sure that I was particular about how I work on my stroke. Persistent practice is where perfect practice makes perfect. So if you want to do something well, I would break that stroke down for the forehand, for example. When I've coached some persons, they will come in and they will hit the ball with just one hand. But I also realized that I can get more results if I include my entire body and hit the stroke with my entire body. But in order to understand that, I had to break each step down. Set up. Okay, that's the first one. Set up, turn. And again, I'm dissecting the stroke as I'm improving that stroke. Perfect practice makes perfect. On the other side now, there is consistent practice. Consistent practice means frequency, how often I will show up. And I have to show up at least 5 times a week for training, intense training. Consistent